in which they agree with. Let's play a video real quick.
It was a terrifying night. Campus police issuing a shelter-in-place order.
Colleges across America are in turmoil.
He's a fascist, and Berkeley did not welcome him.
College swimmer physically hit by trans rights protesters after speaking at San Francisco State University.
Intimidating and bullying a Jewish kid.
Pro-Palestinian protesters storm a New York college. They pound on the doors, threatening 11 Jewish students.
I didn't think I was this intimidated. I believe that gentleman just threw paint on me.
Yeah, no, you just support the genocide of trans kids and...
A group called the NYU Anti-Fascists, arguing that McGinnis is a hate speaker with a track record of using incendiary language.
So these are our college campuses in America today. Is this your experience, the three of you collectively?
I personally have not experienced, thank God, violence towards myself, but the rhetoric being spread and the incitement to violence, yes.
Yes, this is very similar to what we have, when we're tabling, also the lectures that we host on campus.
Unfortunately, yes, it is. We had a violent mob chase us across campus following one of our lectures, and I have had literature comparing me to a Nazi, to a fascist, with many other obscenities written in the letter sent to the address of my parents' house. So these issues need to extend off campus.
See, that's the problem I think what most of us see is that colleges should be the environment in which you learn, that you learn how to debate, that you learn how to defend your ideas, to grow as a person. But that doesn't seem to be the case here. Scholars have said that the purpose of the American public school system is to prepare the future citizenry of this republic. But that doesn't seem to be taking place. Ms. Jordan and Mr. Ogrizak, did I pronounce that right? Okay. I know there was a lot of variations of that I heard today. I just wanted to confirm that. A 2022 report from the Foundation for Individual Rights in Education revealed that roughly 3 in 5 students expressed worry about damaging their reputation because someone misunderstanding what they have said or done. Roughly 1 out of 2 students reported that they feel discomfort expressing their own views on college campuses on controversial political topics. Can genuine learning transpire in such repressive academic institutions? Ms. Jordan?
Sorry, could you repeat the question again, please?
Can genuine learning transpire in such a repressive academic environment?
Like, are you asking if learning can happen from how these students are kind of acting out?
Right, so I mean, if 1 out of 2 students feel that they can't express themselves because of discomfort of a controversial political topic, can you truly be learning?
Absolutely not, because you're just running away from the conversation. You're not engaging in dialogue. You're learning nothing. Like recently, me and a fellow YAF member had been accosted by 2 pro-Palestine people, and when we were sharing our viewpoints, and someone else who actually had a personal connection to 2 hostages started sharing our viewpoints, the 2 students just ran away. They learned nothing, got nothing out of the discussion because they can't tolerate a different point of view and can't be exposed to another side. Therefore, it's just a constant echo chamber of misinformation.
Mr. Ogrizak, isn't that self-censorship basically, and that you're not allowed to participate or express your viewpoints? Isn't that concerning?
Yeah, that is concerning to me. Of course, true education, true understanding, questioning your own morals can only come when everyone in the room, everyone who is in that Center for Learning is able to completely express their values, their viewpoints. If you are unable to do so, I don't understand how new ideas can form.
Thank you. And just in conclusion, Ms. Silberstein, I noticed in your written testimony that you talked about how relatives from Israel have called you to see how you were doing here. And this is in light of the recent events that are going on in Israel right now. How insanely ironic that is that they're calling you to check on you and your status at Cornell University. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. I apologize. I have to get to, I'm 10 minutes late for another engagement I have to get to. I want to thank all of you for being here. The chair would ask Ms. Hageman if you could come up and take the chair while we go to Mr. Moran, and then Ms. Hageman will close out our hearing. But I did have two quick things. Mr. O, you had a point you wanted to make earlier, and I said I'd give you time. You can make that point if you haven't. Committee will be in order if we get the Capitol. You decided to either become not wait for the police. So if you wanted to do that real quickly, and then I did have a question for Mr. Marcus.
Of course, yeah. I just wanted to touch on Representative Roy's question regarding application of DEI offices and why they may not be so effective. I mean, of course, my biggest problem with these offices is the I in DEI, inclusion. Of course, I think it's a pretty safe assumption that everyone here wants the inclusion of all viewpoints. However, I don't understand how such offices can pretend to facilitate that when it's so unequally applied. When we hosted Alan West on our campus, he came to speak about race, and this was heavily protested, especially by members of this office. The university itself, in their Distinguished Speaker Series, which is pretty well known in the Buffalo area, was able to host Nicole Hannah-Jones, who is the founder of the 1619 Project. These speakers each came to talk about race. They each have large followings, but the response to them was vastly different. Yep. If DEI offices were committed to handling these topics equally, I fail to see why there was this discrepancy.
So one of the things I've just recently learned about, you made me think of it, I know on campuses we have these safe spaces, we have free speech and all this stuff that doesn't mean, it seems to me the free speech zone should be everywhere. It's called the First Amendment. But we have these things. But I learned about this issue called no contact orders. Have any of the three of you students experienced that dynamic on campus where someone says they don't like your point of view, they report to the DEI officer, someone in the campus in authority, and then there's an order that you're not allowed to have contact with another student because that student is somehow offended by what you believe or what you may have said? Have any of you had any experience with that?
I personally have not had any experience with that. No.
Okay.
I also have personally not experienced that.
Okay.
I have not either.
That's good to hear. Maybe it's not very prevalent, which would be a good thing. Mr. Marcus, in your opening statement, you talked about 4 things you thought should happen that you were suggesting the committee do. If you could just, and I just wrote down 1 to 4, but I didn't get those. If you could just recite those for me again, that'd be great.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. I suggested that Congress could provide the Education Department with tools to address violations of the freedom of speech, similar to the way in which it handles violations of the right to be free of discrimination.
Okay.
Second, that there could be a special advisor or coordinator for free speech within the Department of Education reporting to the Secretary. Third,
promoting free speech, promoting the First Amendment, not the Disinformation Governance Board that the Biden administration tried to set up that would limit speech. Is that right?
That's right, Mr. Chairman.
Got it.
If free speech is addressed, if at all, by the Office of General Counsel, by the Office for Civil Rights, there are implications of work done by the Office of Post-Secondary Education and other components, but there is no institutional repository of knowledge on how it is that free speech can be protected.
Okay.
Third, I suggested that the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act would provide important tools for the Education Department. And I believe the fourth one is that there could be a check on whether the Biden administration is indeed planning to issue the promised regulations implementing the Trump Executive Order 13899 next month as promised in the OIRA Unified Agenda and Regulatory Plan, but for which there's been no talk in
that's something that's current that we need to pressing right now. I want to thank all of our witnesses, particularly our students, Ms. Silberstein, especially you and what you've had to endure. But thank you all for being here. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Texas for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to address in the context of this hearing my concerns about diversity, equity, and inclusion offices on campuses in particular. We've heard some of that today, but I noticed a trend that's very disturbing to me, and then I want to come to some of the students and ask you about your experiences on campus as well. But it seems to me that staff at diversity, equity, and inclusion departments on many college campuses today are noticeably anti-Semitic and go about their work in a manner contrary to the stated intent of treating all with equality or equity. In 2021, Heritage did a report on the anti-Semitism of DEI staff at universities that objectively validates my hypothesis on this matter. In conducting its study, Heritage searched the Twitter feeds of 741 DEI personnel at 65 universities to find comments regarding Israel, and for comparison, also looked at their comments about China. Those DEI staff tweeted, retweeted, or liked almost 3 times as many tweets about Israel as tweets about China. But here's what's disturbing. Notably, of the tweets about Israel, 96% were critical of the Jewish state, while 62% of the tweets about China were favorable towards China. So consider that. It appears to me through that data that DEI staff simply across our college campuses and university are favoring China and disfavoring Israel. In my view, this explains in large part the lack of response towards anti-Semitic instances by DEI staff on college campuses. It seems clear to me that there are a number of higher education institutions whose DEI staff are disconnected with the values and the strategic objectives of the U.S., and what's more, they are clearly anti-Semitic. One of the most painful videos from the fallout of the Hamas attack on Israel on this issue in particular is from UC Berkeley. And in the video, you can watch Jewish students pleading with the vice chancellor of DEI to do something to protect Jewish students on campus. That DEI administrator talks about how they didn't have enough time to work with Jewish students and that they were overworked. But despite the unwillingness of the DEI administrators to assist, the students themselves put together a vigil for Israel within 24 hours, despite their busy schedules and despite their workload and despite the fact that they're not getting paid to do that as part of their job. Simply put, Jewish students in many cases receive disproportionate pushback and opposition by DEI staff on college campuses. It's atrocious to me. Dr. Nadel earlier defined anti-Semitism in a number of different ways, but on campuses she said, quote, it involves threats, violence, intimidation, and discrimination on campuses. That was part of her definition. So I want to come to you, Ms. Silberstein, because it appears to me you've experienced this. Have you indeed experienced such threats, violence, intimidation, and discrimination on campuses?
Yes, I have. As I've spoken about before, threats were made saying that they would come to our only kosher dining hall on campus and shoot it up, shoot all of the people who were in it, bomb all of the Jewish houses and facilities on campus that I regularly attend. So yes, I was directly threatened.
And I'm curious, you do have a DEI office at Cornell located there on campus, correct?
Yes, actually, a few weeks ago, the now former DE&I chair, who I'm not sure if his leave was related to this or unrelated, but was found to have made anti-Semitic remarks in support of Hamas online.
Yeah, did that office provide you any support in response to the intimidation that you faced on campus?
No.
Yeah, and that's amazing to me because when I Googled DEI and Cornell, the first thing that came up on their webpage, Cornell's webpage, is a big highlight from this last week that says Cornell awarded excellence in diversity and inclusion. First paragraph of that says Cornell University has been awarded the 2023 Higher Education Excellence in Diversity Award by Insight into Diversity Magazine for its outstanding commitment to diversity and inclusion. Would you agree that they have outstanding commitment to diversity and inclusion?
So I was made aware that they recently added anti-Semitism to their DE&I training that every student and I believe faculty member must go through, but I haven't seen tangible results.
Yeah, and this is just emblematic, I think, of what's going on across the nation. I note that its Stanford University professor was recently suspended for forcing Jewish students in 2 classes to stand in a corner while he called them colonizers. That professor shrugged off the deaths of 6 million Jews in the Holocaust and called Hamas terrorists freedom fighters. Joseph Mossad, a professor at Columbia University, called the Hamas massacre of Israeli and American citizens, quote, awesome, and, quote, a stunning victory. These are horrific statements. Zarina Grewal, a professor at Yale University, stated on X, formerly Twitter, that Israel is, quote, a murderous, genocidal settler state and Palestinians have every right to resist through armed struggle. To me, this is disgusting. It's being propagated by the DEI offices on our college campuses, which are actually working contrary to their stated intent. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back in disgust.
Thank you. The chair now recognizes herself for 5 minutes. Giving more money to the Federal Department of Education isn't the answer. It never has been, and it never will be. In fact, it's the Federal Department of Education that's largely responsible for the free speech crisis that we're seeing on our campuses, both in grade school, high school, and college. What do I mean by that? The testimony that you've provided today has been very enlightening, very fascinating, very disturbing. And we must identify what the real cancer is here so that we can actually at some point start addressing it. And it is our Federal Department of Education. Now, don't get me wrong. I come from a long line of educators. My grandmother, my mother, my sisters, my aunts, great aunts, sister-in-laws. I am a product of public education in the state of Wyoming. But they used to focus on that. Education, not indoctrination. And I have watched with absolute horror, especially as a constitutional attorney, over the last 10 years or so, as those on the left being unable to defend their noxious ideas in the free speech marketplace are now working overtime to prevent us from speaking at all. They are the fascists. They are the ones that are preventing our students from engaging in the free marketplace of ideas. So forgive me if I don't necessarily believe you when you talk about wanting to fight for free speech on campus when I watch university after university after university, and people just like you go in and say, yeah, we believe in free speech, but we don't necessarily agree with what these young people have to say. So we don't know that they should be allowed to bring their speakers to campus the way that others should. We spent an awful lot of time talking about what happened over the last 30 days and what happened on October 7th. And it's definitely at the forefront of our minds. But the very purpose of this hearing was to talk about the importance of free speech on campus and how it has been squelched, how our campuses have been preventing people from engaging in that free marketplace of ideas. Ms. Jordan, I'd like to talk to you for a moment. I very much appreciate your experience in what you've described. You are some very brave young people, much braver than the people who were sitting in the back of the room with their faces covered. You highlight that because of your conservative and Christian values, other students felt you were capable of committing a hate crime or hateful, or that you supported oppression. This seems to be part of a larger trend we are seeing on campuses where opposing views are redefined as violence just to justify attacks on certain viewpoints altogether. Through your experiences at college, do you think your fellow students' actions in condemning your beliefs are part of that broader trend?
Could you please repeat the question?
Sure. Through your experiences in college, do you think your fellow students' actions in condemning your beliefs are part of that larger trend?
The larger trend of
that we are seeing people attack you simply because of your beliefs. That's the trend that I'm seeing on university campuses. They don't want to engage you about your conservative ideas, your conservative ideals, so they attack you personally and accuse you of things such as that you're being hateful or that you support oppression. Do you see that as part of a larger trend?
Yes, I definitely do.
Okay. And why do you think your fellow students view your belief system in this manner?
I think a majority of the students are afraid of the truth. That's simply put it. They can't agree that there's only men and women. I had a student tell me chromosomes don't matter, which is one of the most preposterous statements I've ever heard. And a lot of students, when they're faced with this truth, they know it's true, but they just want to deny it because they want to continue living in their delusions. And it just causes a lot of chaos, honestly, which is really disappointing because, the constant denial of the truth is why our country is in such a disarray as it is.
Uncertainty. That's exactly right. As a recent graduate yourself, I think your perspective on this growing issue and witnessing it for the entirety of your college experience is incredibly important. In your testimony, you covered the hurdles that you faced as a member of Young Americans for Freedom. I want to make sure that I want to address the classroom situation as well. You have outlined the threats and direct acts of violence that you witnessed due to the speakers your group was bringing in, and clearly your student group's differing viewpoint was not accepted by some on campus. Did this also translate into the experience in the classroom, either by you or other people that you know?
It did, yes.
And then how did that happen?
Yep. Other students in class have been called out for wearing, YAF memorabilia, YAF shirts, a YAF hat in classes related to their major. Unfortunate that this was not happened to me, but it did happen to others.
So our professors are also engaging in the suppression of freedom of speech?
Unfortunately, yes. Contrary to my my preferences, political beliefs of professors are not being left at the door.
Okay. With unanimous consent, I have 2 articles I would like to submit for the record. Your Speech is Violence, the Left's New Mantra to Justify Campus Violence by Jonathan Turley, and The Diversity Problem on Campus by Dorian S. Abbott and Ivan Marinovic. Without objection. That concludes today's hearing, and we thank our witnesses for appearing before the committee today. Without objection, all members will have 5 legislative days to submit additional written questions for the witnesses or additional materials for the record. Without objection, the hearing is adjourned.